this rage, all of this angst, all of this animosity towards Israel is not just about Gaza. This goes beyond Gaza. This is not just about Gaza. This is about sovereignty. This is about the will of the people taking priority over the interest of Israel. And what these people are all saying, be it Italians, be it Americans, be it people in Ireland, be it people in Great Britain, is that powerful pro-Israel figureheads, billionaires, lobbyists have undue excessive influence over their respective countries. Our countries do not have true sovereignty because our politicians would rather advance the interest of Israel as opposed to the desires of the collective will of the people. Are these politicians representatives of the people, or are they representing Netanyahu? Gaza has become the symbol by which conservative and liberal can come together. What we are witnessing here is a global intifada. All right, everyone. So I want to talk to you guys about really the end of Israel and how Israel is going to fall for a trap of its own invention. Israel is creating its own trap while at the same time thinking that it is pursuing something that will be great for Israel. So what am I talking about here? Well, Donald Trump and Netanyahu recently got together and they discussed this Trump peace plan. And Donald Trump said, this is going to be a great and beautiful deal. This is a beautiful day for civilization. And what did Netanyahu say? He said, well, Israel still must have a security presence in Gaza.
Gaza will be demilitarized. Israel will retain security responsibility, including a security perimeter for the foreseeable future.
Which means Israel still wants to occupy Gaza because Israel still wants to pursue its plan to build Jewish settlements in Gaza and make Gaza Jewish. And they want to purge Gaza of the Palestinians. I think this is really quite obvious, really quite conspicuous, given Israel's extremely murderous actions in Gaza, Israeli snipers shooting Palestinian kids in the head, and you have some Israeli snipers who are going insane. You have Israeli soldiers who are losing their minds because of this, because of Israel's murderous policies. So what is happening? The whole world is watching this giant slaughterhouse taking place in Gaza, and the world is growing in its hatred for Israel. And you see the riots. You see the riots that took place recently in Italy. People rioting for Palestine. The Israeli propagandists, the sophists for Israel will see this and they'll say, well, why aren't these people rioting for Sudan? I mean, isn't Sudan going through this horrendous humanitarian crisis? Yes, it's true. Sudan is going through a horrendous humanitarian crisis. But you see, all of this rage, all of this angst, all of this animosity towards Israel is not just about Gaza. This goes beyond Gaza. This is not just about Gaza. This is about sovereignty. This is about the will of the people taking priority over the interest of Israel. That's why you have so many Americans at record numbers becoming critical of Israel. Israel used to be a bipartisan issue in this country. It used to be the majority of Democrats were pro-Israel, the great majority of Republicans were pro-Israel, and now what do you see? Now, still the majority of Republicans are pro-Israel, but what is happening? If you look at Republicans who are under the age of 50, the majority of those Republicans within that age bracket are critical of Israel, and their numbers are growing. And if you look at the Democrat Party, the overwhelming majority of Democrats are now critical of Israel. And so what is happening? The anger against Israel is growing. But why? You see, it's not just about Gaza. The slaughterhouse that has been taking place and is still taking place in Gaza has become the symbol that is uniting people against Israel. Gaza is really the straw that has broken the camel's back. This goes beyond Gaza. This is about sovereignty, because people look at Jeffrey Epstein, they look at AIPAC, they look at the pro-Israel lobby, they see how America's politicians are so sycophantic towards Israel, kissing Israel's ass. Their noses are deep in the ass of Israel. They see how their politicians are such pathetic sycophants towards Israel. And they're saying, my God, are we America first or are we Israel first? Does America take priority first, or does Israel take priority first? What is this? Because it's about sovereignty. And they see what's happening in Gaza and they're saying, wait a second, this is a genocide. Kids are getting shot by snipers. Snipers are blowing kids' heads off. You have Palestinian civilians being used as human shields. They're opening fire on starving Palestinians who are just queuing up for food. And this is all being supported by the U.S. government. This is being backed by America's representatives, by America's politicians. And then they see the greatest gathering of American representatives in Israel. And all these American representatives and American officials are in Israel, and they're all there to praise Israel. They're all there to express their support and their love for Israel, and they're going to the Wailing Wall, and you see Marco Rubio at the Wailing Wall, and you see that other guy, what's his name, Mr. Huckabee, Mr. Schmuckabee at the Wailing Wall. It's almost like they plan hit jobs at this Wailing Wall, like in The Godfather when they're at the church and the mobster guy, whatever his name was, the main mobster guy, he's talking to the priest, the baby's being baptized, and the priest says, do you renounce all of the works of the devil? Yes, I do. Meanwhile, people with Tommy guns and shotguns are just blasting the enemies of this mafia gang away, and I'm thinking, man, I wonder if the Wailing Wall is the Jewish equivalent to what the Catholic Church was in The Godfather. It's almost like they plan hits at the Wailing Wall. But anyway, yeah, you see Marco Rubio and Huckabee at the Wailing Wall. Donald Trump has a yarmulke. And all these American representatives in Israel, and Americans are seeing this and they're thinking, what the hell is this? Are we about America or are we about Israel? And then you see this video from one of Megyn Kelly's recent talks, and you see these Americans, Republicans. These aren't liberals. These aren't liberals from freaking Berkeley or whatever. Like, these are Republicans. And they're talking to Megyn Kelly, and they're bringing up what? AIPAC, the pro-Israel lobby. They're asking about how much power, how much influence does the pro-Israel lobby have over our politicians? What the hell is going on here?
83% of the people Israel has killed in Palestine are citizens, not The Epstein files should be released, and why do you think they haven't been released yet?
Do people like Bill Ackman, Robert Shillman, or AIPAC, are they influencing American politicians? Are they influencing popular YouTubers? Are they influencing people like Fox News? And God forbid, are they influencing our president and the decisions that are made?
I don't know what the answer to that is, whether Bill Ackman is influencing President Trump on Israel. Israel is losing the support of its closest ally and most important ally in the world, and that's us. They've already lost the Dems, they've lost the independents, they've lost Republicans under 30, and they're starting to etch away at Republicans over 30.
Because it's not just about Gaza, it's about sovereignty. And then you see this American politician from Florida. I saw this video today. I saw this and I thought, my God, I mean, how cringe is this? How pathetic is this? How sycophantic is this? This is crazy. You see this politician in Florida with I'm not joking, I'll show you guys the video, with a freaking IDF uniform on.
What's with your threads today? Can you tell us anything about those? Charlene's got her flag. I've got my uniform.
And he says, I got my uniform on. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Now, I can understand seeing an American politician with an American military uniform on, right? And he says, I got my uniform on. And it's just some sort of, hoorah, let's rile up the boys type of moment. I'm one of you. Let's support the military. Now, I'm not a big fan of the American military-industrial complex. It's evil. But if I see an American politician with an American uniform, I can understand it, because this is America at the end of the day. But this guy has an IDF uniform on. What? I thought this was about America. So the people in America who are saying, Gaza, what's happening in Gaza is evil, and our politicians are supporting it, our politicians are backing this, Trump is backing this, or he's really not doing anything about it because of the Israel lobby, and you have AIPAC, and you have all these extremely powerful pro-Israel billionaires who are donating money to these politicians, people like Adelman, people like Shillman, etc., Ackman. And are we about America, or are we about the interests for Israel that are being supported and that are being favored by these billionaires? Are these politicians representatives of the people, or are they representing Netanyahu? Are they representing Smotrich? Are they representing Ben Gvir? Are they representing all the psychopaths at the settlements? So the liberals come along and they say, man, what's happening in Gaza is genocide, it's terrible. And the pro-Israel lobby in America is making sure that American politicians back it. Then the Tuckerite conservatives, and this is really the ascending, dominating faction that's growing in this country, the Tuckerite conservatives, the America First conservatives are coming along and they're saying, yeah, you're right about this pro-Israel lobby. And, me as a conservative, this is what they say, me as a conservative, I'm not a big fan of Islam, and I don't want to see a lot of Islamic migration into the United States, but you and I can both agree, you, the liberal, and I, the America First conservative, can agree, we can have common ground here, that this pro-Israel lobby is completely antithetical to America's interests, and we should be America first and not Israel first. And the liberal and the conservative have common ground. And the slaughterhouse, the butchery that's been going on in Gaza has become a symbol by which the liberal and the conservative can have common ground. Tucker Carlson can meet up with Mehdi Hassan. Mehdi Hassan is a liberal. Tucker Carlson can meet up with Mehdi Hassan, and he can say, you're a liberal, I'm a conservative, but we can both agree that what's happening in Gaza is terrible, and we can both agree that America's support for Israel is absolutely excessive and destructive and evil. Gaza has become the symbol by which conservative and liberal can come together, because it's not just about Gaza. This goes beyond Gaza. This is about sovereignty. And then you see the riots that took place in Italy. Thousands upon thousands of Italians. These people are not Middle Eastern. These aren't Middle Eastern immigrants. The pro-Israel fanatics and the Hasbarists cannot use this argument that says, well, this is because of Islamic immigration that we have all of these people in Italy who are pro-Palestine. No, bullshit. That's a lie. Look at the videos of the crowds. You see the people. These are clearly Italians. And these Italians are rioting against the Italian government for Palestine. They're rioting for Palestine. But what triggered the riots? what triggered the riots was Meloni, the leader of Italy, refusing to recognize Palestine. And the Italian people are saying, wait a second, the overwhelming majority of Italians are pro-Palestine and are not pro-Israel. The majority of Italians will definitely support the recognition of the Palestinian state, and yet our elected leader who represents Italy is advancing the interest of Israel and not the desires of the Italian people. So they riot. This is not just about Gaza. This goes beyond Gaza. This is about sovereignty. And what these people are all saying, be it Italians, be it Americans, be it people in Ireland, be it people in Great Britain who are saying similar things about a pro-Israel lobby, what's uniting all these people is this idea, and this is the reality. I know this may sound anti-Semitic, but this is the reality. This is what people are thinking. I'm simply making an observation here. So don't get mad at me, YouTube. But what all these people are collectively saying is that powerful Jewish figureheads control their countries. That powerful pro-Israel figureheads, billionaires, lobbyists have undue excessive influence over their respective countries, and therefore they do not have sovereignty. Therefore, these countries, these people who are upset are saying our countries do not have true sovereignty because our politicians would rather advance the interest of Israel as opposed to the desires of the collective will of the people. This is about sovereignty, and Gaza has become a symbol of not just an outcry against Israeli Jewish supremacism, but truly an outcry against the pro-Israel lobby. What we are witnessing here is a global intifada. A global intifada that doesn't just consist of Muslims and Middle Eastern people and Palestinians, but a global intifada that consists of all races. Whites, Asians, you got people in South Korea who are throwing shoes at a poster of Netanyahu. You got people in Japan. The overwhelming majority of people in Japan are pro-Palestine. Yes, the overwhelming majority of the people in Japan are pro-Palestine. The people in China are pro-Palestine. People in Germany are pro-Palestine. People in Ireland, people in Spain and Italy, many people in the United States, many people in Latin America are overwhelmingly pro-Palestine. And they're saying, we are pro-Palestine. Why are our politicians so pro-Israel? What's going on here? Something doesn't fit. Something is not adding up. Do the people have sovereignty, or do they not have sovereignty? And Gaza has become a symbol of this global intifada that is yearning and calling for national sovereignty of nations. National sovereignty of nations that works for the interest of themselves and not at the behest of Israel's interest. I'll give you guys an example here, because I've been noticing this trend for years. I've been noticing this massive trend probably since 2018. Let's look at Germany. In the early 2000s, the German government wanted to make a deal with Iran to buy liquid natural gas from the Iranians, because Iran has an immense amount of oil and natural gas. Everyone knows this. So Germany comes along and they say, hey, Iran, we want to buy some of your natural gas, and we would like to build some LNG plants in your country and import Iranian liquid natural gas. And Iran said, great, let's make a deal, Deutschland. In comes who? The lobbyists in Germany. And the lobbyists were saying, no, Germany cannot be doing deals with Iran. Iran is an anti-Semitic country. No, Germany, you can't do this. And Germany pulled out of the deal. And some years ago, I want to say in 2018, 2019, Der Spiegel, which is a major German newspaper, published an article on the pro-Israel lobby in Germany. Now, we saw here a major reputable German publication writing about the pro-Israel lobby in Germany. Every time you bring up the pro-Israel lobby, you get condemned, you get accused of being anti-Semitic, blah, blah, blah. But here is Der Spiegel saying, no. No, there is a pro-Israel lobby in Germany. And the article quoted various German figureheads, various German politicians, officials, saying that there is a pro-Israel lobby in Germany that pressures German politicians not to act in the interest of Germany, but to act in the interest of Netanyahu and the Likud party. So this article sparked a lot of controversy. Here is a German, because we all know the history of Germany. I don't have to give you guys the details, but you guys know, if you guys are history buffs, you know what happened 80 plus years ago in Germany. So for a German newspaper to start talking about a pro-Israel lobby in Germany was a pretty big damn deal. And here were various German figureheads, various German officials saying, yes, there is a pro-Israel lobby and it has undue influence in Germany. And it pushes the German government to act at the behest of Israel and not in the interest of Deutschland, in the interest of Germany. A huge portion of the German population is pro-Palestine. So why are German politicians so pro-Israel? Why are people like, what's his name, Mr. Friedrich Merz or Ursula von der Leyen so pro-Israel? Why do you see Friedrich Merz fake crying at some Holocaust memorial?
Den Juden niemand geholfen habe. Ohne ein Festhalten an der Hoffnung auf eine positive Antwort, so schreiben sie weiter, ohne ein Festhalten an der naiven Hilfserwartung des Kindes, wären wir doch als Menschen.
I mean, the guy is clearly fake crying. That's not real crying. It's acting. What's going on here? So the German nationalists are saying, what is happening here? Do we have sovereignty or do we not? Do the German people run Germany? Do the German politicians run Germany? Or does Netanyahu run Germany? Does the pro-Israel lobby in Germany and in America run Germany? What the hell is happening here? So what's happening is an intifada. That's what's happening. We can see in history a parallel to what's happening now. Let's go back to Weimar Germany, which was the German government that arose after World War I. Weimar Germany, as everyone knows, was very corrupt, very decayed, and the society in Germany at this time was extremely degenerate and decayed and sick. It was absolutely sick. It was filled with every degeneracy that every degenerate can think of. And it was a very poor and impoverished society. People were starving. Germans were starving. They were eating cats. You had Germans who had to get a wheelbarrow full of bills just to buy a loaf of bread. I mean, women were selling themselves to prostitution. It was just a very horrific, horrendous, and very depressing situation, to say the least. And in that environment, the nationalists, the German far right were getting a lot of influence because people were getting very angry, obviously, right? In any sort of situation like this, people are going to get angry and they're going to seek out a hero. They're going to seek out a political party that's going to save them from their difficulties, from all their travails. And there was a scandal that happened in Weimar Germany. It's called the bar mat scandal. You can look into this. There's a whole Wikipedia article on this. But basically, you had a guy by the name of Julius Barmat. This guy was an evil, crooked, corrupt person, and he just so happened to be Jewish. And Barmat was a financial speculator. He was all about manipulating currency. He was all about getting tons of money, investing the money, and trying and doing extremely risky currency speculation, and a lot of the times his currency speculation pursuits would fail. But how was he able to do this? Well, there was a lot of starvation that was happening in Germany, and what Barmat would do is he would go to the Netherlands and he would buy a whole bunch of food, bring it back to Germany, and he would sell it to the Germans, and he made a lot of money. And the far-right figures in those days were saying, look at this Jewish guy profiteering on the starvation of the German people. And Barmat would basically do credit fraud. he would go to the Prussian state bank and he would say, I need this much money. And the bank would give him a tremendous, really an ungodly amount of money. And he would take that money and he would spend it in currency speculation. And a lot of the times he would lose in his speculation. And the banks were, the Prussian bank was losing a lot of money. And you could say, well, how was this guy able to guarantee, how was he able to secure such loans? Well, in comes the corrupt Weimar government. The chancellor of Germany at the time, Mr. Bauer, was working alongside Mr. Barmat, and Bauer would secure the deals. He would go to the banks and he would say, yeah, give this money to Mr. Barmat. And Mr. Bauer, the Chancellor of Germany, he was getting cutbacks, or sorry, he was getting kickbacks, not cutbacks. He was getting kickbacks from Mr. Barmat. Mr. Barmat was bribing Mr. Bauer. Mr. Bauer was profiteering. He was profiting from this fraud, from this fraudulent behavior. And you had members of the Social Democrats, which was the dominating party in Germany at that time. You had members of the Social Democrats who were working for Mr. Barmat, and they were collaborating with Mr. Barmat, and they were all enabling Mr. Barmat's fraudulent and very evil behavior. And so what happened? Mr. Bauer was eventually caught, and he said, I didn't make a dime from all of this. And it turns out that he was making a lot of money for Mr. Barmat. And you also had the German Postal Service that was involved in all of this. And there was a situation where the mail service in Germany was making a lot of money from delivering mail, and they gave a lot of money. We're talking somewhere around over $1 million of the currency at the time. I think it was the Deutschmark or the Reichmark. He took that money and he spent it in currency speculation, and he lost, and the Postal Service lost that money. There was a lot of corruption that was going on, and it was a big scandal when all of it was exposed. Big scandal. Now you could say, well, Ted, why was Mr. Julius Barmat singled out? I'm sure there were Germans who were corrupt. Certainly there were Germans who were corrupt, but the aspect of this story that the German nationalists clung onto for propaganda fodder was the fact that so many German officials, so many members of the Social Democrats were in cahoots with Mr. Barmat and were enabling his criminal enterprise. That's what made the story so scandalous. And what were the nationalists saying? They were saying that wealthy, corrupt Jews are controlling Germany and we don't have true sovereignty. Oh. And what are people saying today? They're saying the Mossad controls America's politicians. They're saying the Israeli government has our politicians by the balls. And they see hundreds of American state representatives and other members of Congress going to Israel to worship Israel at the Wailing Wall. And they see Mr. Rubio at the Wailing Wall with Huckabee, and they're talking about God knows what. And they see this and they're saying, we don't have sovereignty. Yeah. So what was being said during the Barmat scandal? These wealthy, corrupt Jews are controlling our country. We must take Germany back into our hands. The German people must take Germany into their hands, away from these criminals. And then what happened? Mr. Bauer, Chancellor Bauer, had to resign. And what was around the corner next to this Barmat scandal? The German election in 1925. And who won the German election? Who won the German election thanks to this giant controversial scandal? It was Mr. Paul von Hindenburg. And what is Mr. Paul von Hindenburg so famous for? Mr. Paul von Hindenburg is famous for one thing, and that is electing Adolf Hitler to be the Chancellor of Germany. Yeah. Adolf Hitler was elected as a response to this idea that Germany was being controlled by corrupt, fraudulent Jewish criminals. Hitler was elected as a result of this collective zeitgeist that was very thick in the political atmosphere of Germany. A collective zeitgeist that said, Germany is under the control of the Jews and we must take power or else the Jews will destroy us. And that's why you see, for example, in various speeches of the Nazis, saying things like, if we don't get rid of the Jews, if we don't kill the Jews are going to kill us. What's very interesting is that there were people in those times, there were people before the election of Adolf Hitler who predicted that the Germans were going to turn on the Jews and that the Germans were going to slaughter the Jews. Let me give you an example here. Let me refer you to a guy by the name of Hilaire Belloc. Hilaire Belloc, I would say, is a very underrated writer, and I would encourage everyone who is watching this video to at least read some of his work. If you do choose to read Hilaire Belloc, I recommend that you read his book called The Jews, because it is quite relevant to the theme, to the subject matter of this video. So Hilaire Belloc in 1922 wrote this book called The Jews. That's the title. I highly recommend that people read it. You have these assholes, probably some schmuck in the ADL, saying the book is anti-Semitic. It's not anti-Semitic. I read the book from cover to cover. I read the book from beginning to end. I can assure you 100% that the book is not anti-Semitic. The book is a warning. The book is a warning. What Hilaire Belloc was trying to warn people in 1922, what he was trying to warn people about in 1922 was that the people in Europe, the people in the West, are going to turn on the Jews. And he spoke about a rage that had been growing in Germany in the early 1920s. And he said that if this rage is not abated, if the people of Germany are not calmed down and their grievances solved somehow, he said the German people will eventually turn against the Jews and there will be a slaughter of the Jews. This is what Hilaire Belloc predicted, and he was absolutely right. And he wrote this in 1922, mind you. And what happened in 1925? You had all of this anger about the bar mat scandal. Mr. Bauer had to resign before that. The Social Democrats became extremely unpopular. Paul von Hindenburg gets elected to be the president of Germany. And in 1933, Paul von Hindenburg elects Hitler to be the Chancellor of Germany. And that was all a response to the scandals that were happening in Germany. And it was all as a result of this extremely popular idea that said Germany does not have sovereignty because the Jews control Germany. This is what they were saying. I'm not saying they were correct. I'm saying this is what they were saying. I'm making a historical observation. So what do we see today? People talking about Jeffrey Epstein controlling America. People talking about the Mossad controlling America's politicians, blackmailing America's politicians. People talking about Trump being under the control of Israel and the pro-Israel lobby. What's happening? What's happening is a rhyming of history, my friends. That is what's happening. It's a rhyming of history. And eventually, what is going to happen? And I hate to say this. I don't like that this is happening. I tell you right now, I have read enough about the Holocaust to know what happened in the Holocaust and how horrific it was. I don't want this to happen. I'm just giving you guys the facts. And I'm giving you guys my prediction based on my observation of history and based on my observation of what is happening currently. But there is going to be multiple Hitlers who are going to arise in the world. Hitlers in the Western world, Hitlers in Europe, Hitlers in various parts of the world. And they are going to turn on the Jews, and it's going to be very, very ugly. And you already see which country has the population that is the most critical of Israel. Probably Turkey, if I had to guess. And remember, at one point in time, Hitler's Mein Kampf was a #1 bestseller in Turkey. You can look into this. There's a lot of Hitler fans in Turkey, to say the least. And Turkey right now is advancing its hypersonic missile project. Turkey right now is increasing its production of ballistic missiles. And what is the Turkish government saying? They're saying this is a response to Israel. We're tired of Israel. And you see Iran attacking Israel. How much of the world, when Iran was pounding Israel, how much of the world sympathized with Israel? Not a lot. The majority of the world praised Iran and are now seeing Iran as a hero as a result of Iran's bombardment of Israel. And so eventually, Israel will be devastated in a massive war. Which countries will be involved? If I had to guess, Iran, Turkey. You could see some European country or countries getting involved in that. But what I will say is that when Israel is torn apart in the future, the world will say, let it be torn apart. Because this country, with all of its evils and with all of its corruption, has had way too much power and has abused its power. And this country orchestrated a genocide, and we watched it happen, and we will not pity Israel. Bottom line. We will not pity it. And herein lies the trap that Israel is setting up for itself. Israel is setting up for itself a trap. And it continues to fall into this trap. Because, like any trap, it has a bait. When you place rat poison in your garden, the mice, the rats, they continue to eat the poison. And the rats drop dead. And you see some more rats come along. Guess what you do? You refill the traps with more poison. And you watch as more mice come along and they fall for the same trap. No matter how many times their fellow mice drop dead, the mice keep falling for the trap. Why? Because there's a bait. And the bait is something that they cannot resist. Doesn't matter how many rats around them die. Doesn't matter how many mice around them die. Doesn't matter how self-destructive their urges are. They keep going because they cannot resist the bait. So what is the bait for Israel in this case? The bait, my friends, is power. Gaza. Expansionism. They want to expand the settlements. This is why Donald Trump, no matter how many times he talks about a great, beautiful deal for Gaza, no matter how many times he talks about peace in Gaza, Netanyahu still has to emphasize his pursuit of controlling Gaza. What happened in the meeting recently between Trump and Netanyahu? Netanyahu said that Israel still must have a security presence in Gaza. Why? Because the fanatics back in Israel want settlements in Gaza. And what did Smotrich tell Netanyahu? He said, if Israel cannot occupy Gaza, if Israel occupying Gaza is not part of the deal, I'm leaving your coalition, Netanyahu, and you're going to lose your political coalition. Ben Gvir says a similar thing. He says, no, there must be an occupation of Gaza. They want to build settlements in Gaza. They want to build smart cities in Gaza. What we are seeing being planned for Gaza is something out of a dystopian movie. They want to build smart cities. I did a video about this some weeks ago. They want to build smart cities, and they want to really make this technocratic Silicon Valley dystopia in Gaza. They see Gaza as a testing ground for the use of AI to destroy, to slaughter, to exterminate multitudes of civilians. They see Gaza as a testing ground for this idea of the smart city. What we are seeing is a very sinister, diabolical plan at hand here. And it's almost like I'm watching a Resident Evil video game. When you look at the Resident Evil games, what are they about, right? You have Leon Kennedy, and he goes to the village, and the villagers are monsters, and they're killing people, and they're cannibals. And you see Chris Redfield, and Chris Redfield goes to Africa, and the people there are slaughtering other people, and they're eating people, and there's all sorts of horror that's taking place. Or, Mr. Winters goes to a village in Romania, and you have these cannibals, and they are eating people, and you see all this evil happening, and you're like, oh my God, this is horrific, what's happening here? And as you play these games, these Resident Evil games, what do you always see? Umbrella, right? There's always a corporate interest behind the evil. There's always some technocratic, transhumanist interest that's behind these evils. In Resident Evil 4, it was about using Las Plagas to live forever. In Resident Evil 5, you had this evil genius, I forgot his name. I forgot the name of the villain in RE5. It's been years since I played that game. But you have the villain who is saying, well, through this virus, through these microorganisms, we can become gods. There's a scene in RE5 where the villain says, I will become a god through this microorganism, and that microorganism makes you into a zombie, and eventually you have to fight the zombies. But behind all of the evils in these games, there's a corporate interest. And these games are really a reflection of reality. I mean, they're a fictional, science-fictional reflection of what happens in real evil machinations. Because in Gaza, you see Israeli soldiers just slaughtering people by the tens of thousands. And you're thinking, man, what the hell is going on? This is evil. Israeli snipers shooting kids in the head. What the F is going on here? But then you see there's a massive corporate interest. Silicon Valley figureheads want to be involved. Peter Thiel wants to get involved. There's an evil, sinister corporate interest. And this is the bait that Israel is falling for. This is the bait in the trap that Israel has devised for itself, thinking that it's going to get the bait that it wants, but it's falling for its own trap. Just like Haman. Haman built the noose for Mordecai in the book of Esther. He says, this noose will be used to hang Mordecai. And what happened? Haman ended up getting hanged by his very noose. The trap is power. The trap is expansionism, right? This is the bait in the trap. This is the bait in the trap. And no matter what, Israel wants this. Israel wants this. And you can say, oh, look, Theodore, you're wrong. The Israel lobby will always be in power. This whole idea that you have of, the world turning on Israel, this is never going to happen because, Israel is so powerful. And I hear this, every single time I do a video on this topic, I always get at least one guy telling me this. Oh, you're wrong. All right, it's never going to happen. Israel is super duper powerful. It's always going to be super duper powerful. Think of it this way. Imagine if you were living in the time of Christ and you watched Christ being crucified on Mount Golgotha, and you came to me and you said, man, Ted, the Sanhedrin, they're so powerful. They told Pilate to kill Christ, and Pilate listened. Pilate submitted to their demands. They're so powerful. Oh my God, they're so powerful. Nothing is going to stop the Sanhedrin. Nothing is going to destroy the Sanhedrin. And I tell you, no, the Romans will turn against the Sanhedrin. No, they're not. Did you not see how the Sanhedrin, how Hanan and how Caiaphas got together and they conspired and they framed Christ and they told Pilate that Christ is a revolutionary, that he calls himself a king and we only have one king but Caesar. And Pilate, if you don't kill this guy, we're going to go to the Caesar and tell him that you are not doing anything against this dangerous terrorist and a revolutionary. And they instilled this fear of Pilate because Pilate thought, oh my God, if the emperor thinks that I'm complicit or that I'm not doing anything against this revolutionary, it could be my head in a basket. Oh my God, I better sentence Jesus to death. And we saw how the Sanhedrin framed Christ and how they got Pilate to sentence Christ to death and all this stuff. And it just seems like the Sanhedrin is unstoppable. No one can stop them. They're so powerful. It's a powerful lobby. That's what you would say. But I would say, no, the Romans are going to turn against them. Why? Because when the Sanhedrin was conspiring to kill Christ, they, without even them knowing, unknowingly, they were devising their own trap. And their own trap had its own little bait. What was the bait? Power. Because they believed that if we allow this Christ to continue to preach and gain followers, it's going to be the end of our power. The priesthood of Christ is going to take over our priesthood. The priesthood of Melchizedek, which was the priesthood that Christ is a member of, is going to replace the priesthood of Levi. We can't have that. So they killed him, but they set up their own trap. The bait was power. That was the bait, and they couldn't resist that bait. What was the trap, though? The trap was that they were so immersed, they were so saturated in their power hungriness, that power hungriness would eventually lead to their own demise. How did that happen? Oh, okay, I'll give you guys an interesting story that almost no one ever talks about. I've actually seen no one ever talk about this. But when St. Paul was preaching the gospel to the Jews and to the Gentiles, there was a guy by the name of Ananias. Ananias was the high priest at the time, high priest in Judea, and Paul was arrested, and he was accused of bringing a foreigner into the temple. You can't bring a foreigner into the temple. That's bad. You can't do that, because foreigners are bad. We, the Jews, are the special people. The foreigners are beneath us. They have no place to have any sort of presence in the temple. Can't allow that. So Paul gets arrested, and he's tried by the Jewish religious courts, the Jewish religious court system. And Ananias orders one of his thugs to smack Paul in the face, and the guy smacks Paul in the face, and Paul says, Ananias, God will punish you. You will get your comeuppance. And what happened to Ananias? Eventually, look into what happened to Ananias. It's not in the New Testament. It's in Josephus' history. What happened was the Jewish revolution against the Romans. And there was a faction that rose up in that revolution called the Zealots. And the Zealots were the most fanatical people. They wanted to kill the Pharisees. They wanted to kill the Sadducees. They wanted to take over Jerusalem. They wanted to control the temple. They were utter fanatics and lunatics, terrorists, mass murderers. The Zealots went to Ananias. Ananias fled. They got Ananias and they cut him. They killed them. And I think Ananias was a Sadducee, if I remember correctly. But they killed Ananias. Ananias had a son by the name of Eliezer. Eliezer ben Hananiah. Eliezer, the son of Ananias. Eliezer was elected to be the governor of the temple. This was before the revolution. This was before the revolt against Rome. And the son of Ananias, Mr. Eliezer, sparks the revolution. He sparks the revolution. And how does he spark it? He says, no foreigner will be allowed to do sacrifice in the temple. Now, isn't it interesting that they arrested Paul, accusing him of bringing a foreigner into the temple? And here was Eliezer, the son of the very high priest, who had Paul smacked, saying, I don't want any foreigners in the temple. No foreigner will be allowed to sacrifice in the temple, and that would include the Caesar himself. Ooh, that was a declaration of war. So what happened? You see, it was customary for the Jews every year to do a sacrifice on behalf of Caesar in the temple. And Caesar liked it because it showed diplomacy, and it showed that the religious establishment in Judea was willing to be diplomatic towards Rome, and that was fine for Caesar. It showed submission to the Roman state. But Eliezer ben Ananias says, nope, no sacrifice for Caesar. It's not going to happen. Caesar said, okay, that's a declaration of war, and the war commences. And what happens to Eliezer? Well, he eventually gets killed by the Zealots. The fanatics kill him. And 1 million Jews get butchered by the Romans. And the entire priesthood of the Jews gets destroyed by the Romans. Yes, they destroy the temple, which meant they destroyed the priesthood. And there is quite a profound story in Josephus' history of the Roman-Judean War, in which a bunch of high priests, a bunch of priests from the temple, which was now in flames, run to the Caesar, and they beg for their lives. And according to Josephus, the Caesar, who was a military commander at this point, tells these priests, your temple is destroyed, so of what good is your priesthood? And he has them executed. In other words, your temple is destroyed. That means your priesthood is no more. The priesthood, and thereby the Sanhedrin, was destroyed. And it was destroyed because the elites of Judea created a trap that led to their own demise. They created a trap for themselves, and the bait was what they were pursuing. And they thought, well, if we can just get this thing, we'll be all powerful. If we can just overthrow the Romans, we'll be all powerful. And that trap, that goal that they pursued, was really their own trap. And their goal, their desire, was the bait that they set for themselves. And they ended up being destroyed. Israel is creating a trap, just like the Sanhedrin created a trap. And they think that this trap is their dreams come true. If they can just fulfill this trap, their dreams will be fulfilled. But really, it's just a trap at the end of the day. Israel's goal, Israel's dream, is to control Gaza, to control all of the West Bank, to have a greater Israel. And all they're doing is getting the world to hate them more, and eventually the world will turn on Israel. That's what's going to happen. I don't want it. I don't want this to happen. I don't want to see civilians in Israel being killed. But I have to say, as someone who reads history and reads the news, and I say this with sadness, that the future of Israel is very dark and very bleak and destructive. And it's because of this trap that Israel's elites are setting up for themselves. And you have people in Israel who are saying, stop the war. This is only going to lead to our demise. But their cries are falling on deaf ears. And it doesn't matter what Israel does. It doesn't matter. Because no matter what, just as the mouse always falls for the trap, Israel is going to fall for its own trap. So it doesn't matter what Israel does to try to sanitize the image of Israel. Look at what Netanyahu said recently. He said, well, we really have to deal with this problem of social media. Social media is the big problem. It's a big problem in our war. And, cavalry doesn't work anymore. That's outdated. And muskets don't work. Bows and arrows, swords, they don't work anymore. Those are outdated weapons. But the modern weapon, a major modern weapon right now is the propaganda war, social media. And what are the two social media platforms that are our biggest focused? And what did the people tell Netanyahu in his little talk on Hasbara? TikTok and X.
He said, we talked about the woke right. And he said, I call it the woke Reich. That's a brilliant observation. The woke Reich, because these people, they're not any different from the woke left. I mean, they're insane. They're loonies. But they're actually meeting on some of the things. And what we have to do is we have to secure that part of the base of our support in the United States. That is being challenged systematically. A lot of this is done with money. Money of NGOs, vast. Money of governments, vaster. Okay? We have to fight back. How do we fight back? Our influencers. I think you should also talk to them if you have a chance. To that community. They're very important. And secondly, we're going to have to use the tools of battle. The weapons change over time. You can't fight today with swords. That doesn't work very well. Okay? And you can't fight with cavalry. That doesn't work very well. And you have these new things, like drones, things like that. I won't get into that. But we have to fight with the weapons that apply to the battlefields in which we're engaged. And the most important ones are the social media. And the most important purchase that is going on right now is
Followers.
TikTok. Number one. And I hope it goes through because it can be consequential. And the other one, what's the other one that's most important? X. That's very good. And, so we have to talk to Elon. He's not an enemy. He's a friend. We should talk to him.
Why do you think Larry Eliason, who's a big multi-billionaire Zionist, hardcore pro-Israel guy, is set to be one of the controllers of TikTok in America? Why do you think Trump did this whole setup to enable these billionaire Zionists to basically take control over TikTok in the United States? What do you think that's about? Israel is trying to control the information war. They're trying to dominate the information war because they see how X is filled with people who hate Israel. They see how X is filled with videos of a bunch of bloody, dead Gazan children, and people see this and they're absolutely horrified, and they hate Israel as a response to this. Israel sees how TikTok has become the major source for the American youth about Israel, and they want to change that. But it doesn't matter. Because if people look at, let's say Israel's billionaire acolytes take control over TikTok, they take control over X, right? And they stop, they manipulate the algorithm in a way that will favor pro-Israel propaganda. People are going to see that, and they're not stupid. They're going to see that, and they're going to say, what's going on here? What's happening here? Someone's manipulating the algorithm. They're not stupid. It's not going to work. No matter what Israel does, Israel could put $1 trillion into Israeli propaganda. It still will not work. Why? Because Israel continues to fall for the trap that it has invented. And the bait is the power that it so seeks. And that bait is going to be to the demise of Israel. Anyway, I'll see you guys later. I've talked long enough. You guys just heard some theology. God bless.